doesn't have anything to do with the actual merits of the motion.
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Frappier?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Geddes?
Yes.
Mr. Withers, yes. Mr. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Storrs?
Yes.
Ms. Bordeaux?
Yes.
Mr. Domenici?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Geddes. All right, so first on our agenda tonight, we have our spotlight event, which is the Attleboro Community Academy. And for that, I am going to turn it over to Ms. Regan to do the introductions.
Thank you, Chairman Withers. So tonight's spotlight presentation is the Attleboro Community Academy. Ms. Hickox and her team are here tonight, and they are going to talk to you about the ACA way. So, Ms. Hickox, would you please join and introduce your team?
Certainly. Thank you, Ms. Regan. Come on up. So with me tonight, I have Kyle Sankyo, I have Lily Knaus, Aiden Boron, and Evan Connors, presenting our Ms. Walsh, who's our full-time English teacher, and Ms. Gerald, who joins us this year as our guidance counselor. And in addition, we have the rest of our staff and a few students. Ms. Merrick's here with us for probably her 13th hour of the day as our adjustment counselor. So I thought I'd begin just to give you a little recap of the last year and a half, what we've been doing at ACA, and then I'll certainly turn it over quickly to the folks we know you want to hear from. So it's been a year and a half, and I met with you, if you remember, I sure do, virtually July 1st, 2020. And I promised you I would meet the students where they were at, and that has proven to be the most important thing. I believe in education today is where everybody's at and what is our baseline and what do we need to be doing. And personally, having spent a quarter of a century in Attleboro, I believe that this school is the way to go, and that across the country we should have more schools like this, and hopefully you'll feel the same. We are lucky enough to be the one school in the district that stayed in person for 2 years, but for those 2 weeks last year after the holidays. So we're very proud of that. Certainly our size had a lot to do with it. For the first year, we had to really change the way we do things. And some of that we liked. So this year, we kept some things and we brought some more traditional things back. So what has evolved is our mission, which you have in front of you, and our 4 key principles that really guide what we do. First of all, we are competency-based. So no longer are our students earning 89s and 47s and 62s. We are based on the standards, and our guide is Portrait of a Graduate, and students use we use the content as the backdrop for the transferable skills. These are clearly designed and clearly told to the students before we begin, and they meet the criteria, they meet the competencies, the benchmarks for the course in order to pass it. Second key principle is the individualized pathways. Again, the size of the school allows us to do this. Each student comes to us at a very different place in their journey. They come different trimesters and they leave different trimesters. So very clearly on, I realized that we have to individualize it. And they're all on very different plans. So we do that through live lessons, Google Classroom, and studio time, which the students will speak to. Third, and maybe the most important, is the social emotional component of what we do. Clearly, a school like this exists for students for whom the traditional model is not the most effective. And therefore, we have to do things differently. We love the extracurricular things we're able to do. We have an amazing student support team. Mr. Hunter's in the back. Again, I tell you, we have an adjustment counselor 1 day a week who's worked all day, but she's amazing. She came and we just had a new student orientation a couple hours ago. 20 new students for this tribe. We have some community-based programs. We had the Northeastern Bank folks came in and taught personal financial literacy last trimester. My favorite is the Pause for Comfort. The local chapter of Support Dogs come monthly. The mentor program is something that we need to bring back. It kind of had to be put on a back burner during COVID for obvious reasons, but it was phenomenal and it had good good results, so I want to bring that back. That's in my long-term plan. And our last key principle is something that is really my long-term plan, and that is our post-grad planning. I don't want, and we don't want, our students walking out with a piece of paper. We want them walking out with a diploma and a plan. And again, that's something we're going to work on over these next few years, digitalizing their portfolios. Bringing on Ms. Gerald has been amazing. She's started a transition course. We're working with School to Career again. We want to do more of community shadows, community speakers coming in to just help these guys get to the next step for them. So with that, you've heard enough from me. I'll turn it over to Ms. Walsh, and she will bring the students.
Yes, so I'm here to talk a little bit more closely about the ACA way, introducing our students and talking about how we're able to really bring in these principles into our everyday world here. So thank you for turning it over to me. Thank you for being here. So as Jean was saying, we had to make a lot of changes coming into this new year based off of both the pros and cons of COVID, right? Because obviously there was a lot that was wrong, but we noticed a lot of great things occurring at our school as well. And so with Portrait of a Graduate, we really wanted to weave in those ideals and values into our schedule as is. We don't want them to exist in two different worlds. We want them to live together. And so we're able to do that with classes like our senior capstone and senior transitions class, where students are building those digital portfolios that I know everyone's wanting to see more of, along with really making sure that that postgraduate plan is in place. And then also what students will see as they lead up to that are just their academic courses, which we're really trying to break into more cross-curricular, having different teachers of different subjects teach together. And of course, I think a fan favorite, at least of mine, and some people here, our daily advisory. And so before I wanted to dive into more, I wanted Lily to maybe speak a little bit about her experience coming to ACA, and also maybe a little bit about what advisory can bring to that experience.
So I came from a different school district. I was out of school for about 2 years over the course of COVID. I started going to ACA in September, and honestly, I came here just to get my mom off my back and get a diploma, but now I truly enjoy coming in because it's such a different experience than the traditional high school. Instead of, feeling like you have to come in and you have to, get good enough grades so that it looks good on a report card. You come in because you want to learn, you want to experience fun things like advisory. It's a very easy transition into the school day, but it's also productive. We get work done without being overwhelmed of feeling like we're not doing good enough, because we always know that there's teachers that will help us with everything. It's very personalized. They're very caring, which is very helpful and motivating. School it feels like a reward and not a punishment anymore. It's a very nice change. So
yeah, I would say as an advisor, I think that as a teacher, it has only strengthened my relationships with my students and ultimately leading to just better experiences as a teacher, because we have that time at the beginning of the day where it's we're not teacher and student, we're a little bit more teammate and coach, or maybe even more on the same page than that, I guess I'd say. So that's the way that we start the day. And then going into high expectations, formatting issue, these were supposed to be videos, trying to make it nice and interactive for everyone. I noticed that, was a little upset. But speaking of high expectations, other things that we do, like the more academic classes, we really try and focus on having an inquiry-based approach. And also, to make sure that we're flexible and individualized in our approach, we really also want to make sure that there are alternate means of assessment. I think the teachers here can confidently say, we're not the teachers that are going to be giving you the test in the 5-paragraph essay at the end of the trimester. We really like to see alternate forms of students showing what they know. And for example, Aiden Boron, He was in mine and Mr. Rubiano's science fiction class, an amazing experience. The science teacher and I got together to blend science and English together to talk about technology and how it can change our lives. And Aiden really took a hold of the ability to have his own hands-on experience, and I want him to talk about his final project for us for a little bit.
Yeah, so the whole class was about learning about different social sciences, and the way she wanted us to kind of present how I learned throughout the class was setting up my own social experiment. So that's what I did. I spent a whole day where I basically taught the whole class, and this was a super cool experience. Like, I got the whole chance to kind of take a leadership role, and literally, like, I got to have a good time and kind of hopefully taught some of my own, like, peers. So that was really cool. And, you know, one of the whole points of this school is they make you feel comfortable, and they gave me a place where, like, I could do that effectively. I could do that where I didn't feel like I was going to be judged by anyone, or like I had to do anything specific. Like, I just kind of was sent in there and sent to do what I wanted. So yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Yeah. And to go off of that, I really think that proves that, like, the experience here isn't about, you know, getting 100 on the test. It's about taking the risk. And I think we can all speak that, like, we learn the most from the risks we take, and especially those academic ones. And you definitely proved that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So to continue off of that and to just kind of wrap up why I'm here, you know, we really try and combine a lot of different qualities here at ACA. One, we really want to promote a healthy academic struggle. We think it's important to have high expectations, to make sure that their learning experiences are really meaningful. We really foster healthy communication skills, of course, with the portrait of a graduate. We're really trying to make sure that they're not only communicating with their teachers or advisors, but each other on these endeavors. And I would say most of all, we really foster and care for the relationships that we build with students. And I know Evan, you know, actually I think came to Ms. Hickox to talk about his experience with being able to just get a little bit more attention and help than he was at his prior school. So Evan, if you could speak on that, we'd appreciate it.
Yeah, so I actually came from Attleboro High School. So it's a lot more packed there, and it's a lot more like busy and stuff like that. So it's harder to get that one-on-one time with teachers, and it's harder for me to understand without it. It's easier for me to understand with the one-on-one time with teachers. So at night school, it's a lot easier for me to get that one-on-one time with teachers. So it helps me out a lot.
And we make sure to build that in, not only through advisory, but our daily academic studios, which I always see Evan in, and our academic enrichments, where we get to see that healthy struggle and the problem solving and that critical thinking really take action. You know, I think from students who never thought of themselves in that way, too. Before we finish up, I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Gerald to talk about how we create and foster community and our social emotional learning.
Hi everyone. I get to talk to you guys about transitions, the class that I teach for all of our graduates, which is one is here. This is Kyle. He's graduating today.
Today.
Yay. So in our class, the first class we do, I ask them where they are. Are you doing college, career, military? What do you want to do? And I'm like, I want you to think outside the box. My job is to make sure that you're doing something passionate. So like, I get to show up to work every day and really love what I do, honestly. So like, I want you guys to feel how I feel every single day. So whatever that is, if you want to start a business, if you want to do art therapy, if you want to be a teacher, any of those experiences we do. We use some resources like Naviance, which they also use in the day school. We use Naviance for our classes to talk about different careers, have them think outside the box beyond the lawyer, the doctor, the teacher. I want you to find your passions and go into the career field that you want to. So we do that. We also do things around careers. We talk about how much careers make, like how much people, literally in Naviance, you can fill out a different survey and we can like, do you want to move to California? Great. You want to be an art therapist in California? What is the average of that career in that like state? So that's some of the things that we do. We also do budgeting. We did a fun budgeting activity, rolling the dice, because in life, things happen. So if you have a family of 4 and then your car breaks down, what does that mean? And really having those tough conversations about what does that look like? And even sharing personal experiences of when that happened to me when I was in college and things like that. So that is something that we really do. We want each student to have their own personal time. And me and our intern, we meet with each student one-on-one. What is your career path? What do I need to do? I'm on the phone with California looking up students who wanted to do tattoo artistry in California. I'm literally on the phone trying to catch a 3-hour difference to meet with these people on the phone so that my students can go there and really have a plan beyond just a diploma. Do you want to share a little bit more, Kyle, about our class?
Yeah, so prior to having the transitions class, I did not know what I wanted to do after graduating, and that was like one of my biggest worries coming here. So having that class kind of helped me pinpoint what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go, and I was really glad that I was able to have that opportunity.
What do you want to do?
I want to do music therapy. I'm not sure where, but psychology has always been like something important to me, and I want to like make a job out of that.
Yes. Thank you, guys. I'm going to pass it
Thank
back
you.
to Ms. Hickox.
Yes, I just realized I was standing here and I would be remiss if I did not bring attention to the staff at ACA. They have incredible energy every day, and they take it seriously. They work these wonky hours, which sometimes are, a little mind-boggling, but we really do work as a team. And I've had that at other times in my career here, but I really like it here. And I think that when everybody's pulling the rope in the same direction, you really can move mountains. And we always try to keep these students in mind. We survey them quite a bit to find out what's working and, more importantly, what's not. So we do make a lot of changes, but we are afforded that. So again, on behalf of us all, I want to thank you for the time. And if you have any questions, that's why we're here.
Any questions or comments for the ACA students or administrators or teachers? Mr. Larson?
Ms. Hickox, thank you very much. I'm really looking forward to the presentation, and I think the ACA is such a special part of what Attleboro Public Schools has to offer. Just listening to the different stories, both tonight and over the years, it's a great opportunity for people who, for whatever reason, didn't finish when they thought they might, or but to get them back to a place, and hearing the stories every time about the people who come back. I mean, I can't imagine how hard it would be to come back. But listening to the stories when they do come back, and the motivation that they have, and the success that they all seem to have, it's just so impressive. It really is. So my eternal thanks.
I agree. If you've never been to our graduation, it is the event of the year.
It is definitely the event of the year.
Just going to get that plug in.
Yes.
Mr. Storrs?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To me, it's always been about opportunities for students. Sometimes it could be sports, sometimes it could be arts, drama, sometimes it's core subjects. Sometimes it's having a program like this that gives students an opportunity to do something that they wouldn't have otherwise. And that's what's so special about ACA. And 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, whatever it was, I knew you were the right choice for this, for this program, for this role. So, thank you to you and your staff. Thank you to the students for being here tonight.
Couldn't do it alone.
You guys represented ACA very well. Thank you.
Mr. Geddes?
I think in a lot of ways, ACA models what we want our entire district to be in terms of the individualized support, the dedication to postgraduate planning, and it seems like you've started to assemble an all-star team of folks since you've transitioned, having worked with Ms. Gerard and Ms. Merrick in other roles within the district. This is, and to everything Mr. Larson said about when students come back, how much they attribute their own personal success to what happened at ACA, is really remarkable. So thank you to the staff for all the work, and thank you to the students for wanting to take that step. I know it was, I apologize, I forget your name. Lily. When you said, I just came here to get my mom off my back. I think that's, I think a lot of students have that feeling. Like it's just, I just got to do this, so I may as well just do it. And then they get there and they realize, why didn't I do this sooner? Or I wish I had done this sooner, or this is so much better for me than what I was dealing with before. So I guess I say that more to the entire community, that that if a student is struggling, whether it is, like Evan mentioned, here at Attleboro High School or in another district, ACA has a lot of opportunities for you to get back on track and get to where you need to be. So, thank you all very much.
Mr. Domenici?
Thank you. I have been to the graduations. It is one of my favorite event to go to. I'm not saying that because you're here. You'll know it. Bill and I, it's just an amazing experience. To kind of piggyback off of what Rob was saying, I mean, we're looking for, like, the way you talk about assessment and how you look for alternative ways to assess students and success is what we are striving to do. What I think our administration, they're mavericks along with several other communities to create a whole consortium to change the way we assess. It's not all about MCAS and what you get on a test score. You have to be able to find ways to show success with students, and we have an academy that has a proven record of doing just that. So to Rob's end, it's, I think, something we try to do across the entire district. The idea of having individualized education plans should be something we should have for everyone. Not something that seems stigmatic. It's something that's a path that we should have for all our kids. And I think, we keep continuing to move the needle for the entire district. But this is always, the good example to see, where that can be. And so I'm really appreciative for all of you coming up here. It's not easy to come up and speak in front of everybody. You don't know us. But you did a great job explaining your stories, and thank you for sharing them. And, I look forward to seeing you all in a nice warmer day, end of May or beginning of June. So,
May
thank
26th.
You. May 26th.
Mhm.
I'll book it.
Noted.
Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you so much for your
Okay,
time.
Thank you.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. We're clearing the room. Thank you.
All right. Next on our agenda, we have our Student Advisory Council all-around Attleboro Schools update.
Good evening. This week's All Around Attleboro segment contains important information regarding the start of March.
We're going to start off with our SAC shoutouts tonight. Congratulations to Elizabeth Kalish, who will represent AHS in the Massachusetts Southeast Junior Districts Festival Orchestra, playing first violin. And congratulations to AHS swimmer Zuri Ferguson, who won the MIAA State Championship. To elementary schools, all elementary schools are having a kindergarten information night on March 3rd at 6:30 p.m. Parents or guardians can come and gain information regarding the enrollment of their child in the upcoming school year. Willett is having their school council meeting on March 3rd at 7:30 a.m. Hill Roberts is having a bingo for books night on March 4th at 5 p.m. Students and their guardians are welcome to come and enjoy a fun night of bingo. We have Hill Roberts School Council meeting on March 7th at 5:30 p.m. and Hill Roberts is also having their PTO meeting on March 8th at 6:30 p.m. Thatcher is having a virtual PTO meeting at March 8th at 6:30 p.m. Willett's PTO meeting will be on March 17th at 6 p.m. and this will be a virtual meeting as well. To middle schools, Wamsutta is having a school council meeting on March 23rd at 5:30 p.m. They're also having a PTO meeting on March 23rd at 6:30 p.m. Brennan's PTO meeting will be on March 23rd at 7 p.m. and Brennan's having their National Junior Honor Society event on March 10th at 6 p.m.
For the high school, junior planning night is happening on March 3rd at 6:30 p.m. in the Bray Auditorium. This is a great opportunity for students and families to learn more about future plans. Come support our music department at the festival on March 4th at 7 p.m. in the Bray Auditorium. Varsity Jacket Night is happening on March 7th at 6:30 p.m. in the Bray Auditorium. Come and congratulate your fellow peers for all their accomplishments. And lastly, come and support our music department at the Prism concert happening on March 9th at 7 p.m. in the Bray Auditorium. For community engagement, the Blue Pride Ambassadors Club Shoe Drive is happening on March 12th, 19th, and 26th from 9 to 12. This will help raise funds for Staff Appreciation Week, scholarships, and Staff Back to School Luncheon. The community open house of the current AHS building is on March 19th from 9 to noon. This is an opportunity to reminisce, place orders for commemorative t-shirts and other memorabilia, and buy tickets for the June 18th Lights Out extravaganza. This concludes our segment of All Around Attleboro. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Geddes?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to elaborate a little more on that March 19th event, there apparently has been confusion about this event. So just to clarify, and we'll get into more details about the memorabilia later on tonight, but this is a night of self-guided tours of the current high school. This isn't an opportunity to tour the new high school. It has nothing to do with the old high school on County Street. These are just self-guided, come walk through the building one last time opportunities of the current AHS. And then in June, the June 18th Lights Out extravaganza is going to be the much more elaborate, much more exciting, much more group-focused celebration of closing this building and transitioning into the new high school. The new high school will not be open and accessible that night, but there will be a lot more fun details about that event coming down the road.
Thank you. Next on our agenda tonight, we have our superintendent's report. Mr. Boyer.
Thank you. I have a couple of brief updates for the committee tonight. One, as you all well know, today was our first day in which masks were no longer a requirement in the district. I wanted to give you an update. In all of the buildings, a majority of students were without masks today. We had two of our middle schools where the percentage of unmasked students was somewhere in the 55 to 60% range. But in most of our schools, our elementary schools and the high school in particular, the number of unmasked students we estimate at closer to 80%. So, we had quite a few people without masks today. Expect that will continue moving forward, and we'll be keeping a close eye on the ramifications of that. I think as much as the experts have told us that it is now time to make this move, and that this is a move that we are eager to make when it is safe to do so. We'll find out in due time whether or not they were right about that, and so we'll be keeping a very close eye on our pool testing numbers, positive cases through other means, and certainly we'll report to the committee if we see any signs that this decision to make mask wearing no longer a requirement has any sort of ramification. But certainly we're going to test this theory as we see that district-wide, about on average, 3/4 of the kids were without masks today.
How about teachers?
We didn't try to estimate that in particular, but anecdotally, I would say it's above half. Not quite sure how much beyond that, but saw a mix.
Yeah.
I would say that most of the district looked much like this room, a mix of some people were in masks and some people not. And, there was a lot of concern about how that was going to play out in the schools. And I'm here to report that in the schools that I was in today, it was as if there was nothing strange about it. I mean, here at Attleboro High School, I saw kids walking down the hall together, one wearing a mask, one not wearing a mask, talking as if all was normal. And in a meeting later this afternoon, an elementary teacher talked about how it's funny how sometimes it's the adults that, anticipate there being a problem, but the kids are more resilient, and that, they've been in supermarkets for months now and seen both masked and unmasked people in all kinds of settings, and so it wasn't as strange to them today as we were worried it might be. So I believe that we're delivering on our promise to make the environment such that people who still feel it is in their interest to wear a mask, that they feel that it's acceptable and safe to do so. And I saw plenty of evidence that at least that's true out of the gate. I'd also say that the administration, for the next few weeks especially, We're going to be, masking when we're in classrooms, when we're in the learning environment. We want to make sure to make it feel like, again, that masking is a thing that is acceptable in the district. But as you can see in this meeting, and plenty of times during the day today, I was not wearing a mask either. So we're kind of picking and choosing, but in our visits into classrooms, we're going to mask. And then, of course, when we meet with people who feel like they're more comfortable masking, we'll mask in our interactions with those people. So this is sort of how we're going to approach the transition, and we'll assess in a couple weeks whether or not it's time to make another change towards that. But for now, that's how we're handling things. I wanted to just clarify what happened over the weekend. I know that we ended up having to send out 2 messages on Saturday, which, as a person who lost a Saturday to that whole situation, I'm here to tell you it was not anything we enjoyed. When it comes right down to it, we haven't been following CDC guidance as a state from the beginning. I mean, at several meetings we've talked about the fact that Massachusetts, on several occasions, took a stance that deviated from the CDC's guidance. In fact, the commissioner had said that the feeling at the state level was that our experts are better than the CDC experts, right? So we have not been in the habit of particularly following the CDC. So when they dropped a big change to their guidance on Friday afternoon, I know that Attleboro was not alone in not noticing, in plain English. I think it was a bit suspicious that they chose to do that, especially going to a weekend in which they knew a lot of states were making a big change on Monday. It seemed a bit strange to me that the timing was such as it was. And then the state was silent on the matter until Sunday morning, quite honestly. So when we first began to realize that something was afoot, we tried to reach out to figure out whether the CDC guidance actually changed the requirement about busing. And there wasn't clarity about whether or not that CDC change really was the change we needed. And then the state silence left us with a couple of hours of really not knowing exactly what was going on. But we finally got some clarity from the Superintendent's Association. And that's when we were able to definitively send out the clarification. So I do apologize to families that you had to get 2 messages from us. That first one we had written and planned earlier in the week as just a friendly reminder going into the weekend. And so we sent that out as we planned to. And then it was after that that we realized that something had changed. And then we wanted to clarify for the families that had questions about that yes, in fact, that change was a real one, and we were going to be following it. I would just add that as part of the CDC's new guidance, they now have a new rating system for counties, and Bristol County is a low-risk county under the CDC's new system. So with that, it's very similar to the state's stance that was already in place, right, that indoor mask wearing is no longer necessary, that it is recommended for unvaccinated people, but it is not a requirement. So we are in good standing with that, and again, hopefully a sign that this is the right time and that we haven't taken a premature step. If there's nothing else about my favorite topic, masks.
Nope.
On a completely separate issue, as one of my goals this year, I told you that we wanted to work on district communication. We're working on finding a new vendor for the website. That's a process that we'll be wrapping up in the coming weeks, and looking forward to giving you some more information on that. But one of the things that in my action steps I talked about was doing a tour and meeting with parents. That is now something that we're ready to announce our schedule for those visits. We're billing the night as APS 101. It's really an opportunity for me to meet with families and go over some basics about the district and how it works. It's really geared towards families with younger students. It's kind of an attempt to invest in, for many of our families, it's a relationship of 10 or more years, right? If you have multiple kids, it can be a 20-year relationship between a family and the district. And so we think that it would be helpful if we did a better job of explaining why things are the way they are, how certain things work, and our perspective on a couple issues that are things that we run into all the time with families. So That's what the night is going to be related to. We're going to do a tour of all 5 elementary schools. The thinking here is that, for most families, even if they have middle school age kids or even high school kids, everyone's welcome to come, although it's not really geared for the older families. The high school does plenty of programming for high school age families. This is much more for younger, but for the middle school families that want to come, most middle school families have a relationship with one of the elementary schools, and so we felt like they'd be comfortable to join. But all 5 events are open to anyone who wants to come. So if your home school is in the night that works for you, you can certainly come to another one. We're going to be sending out a flyer later this week that outlines all those dates, and hopefully we'll have some decent turnout, and this will be one of the ways in which we improve our communication with families. So just wanted to give you a heads up on that's coming. All right, I have updates on principal vacancies, which is obviously some of the most important things that we're doing these days. The most notable piece of news for you tonight is that the committee working on the vacancy at Hyman Fine have selected Noah Collins, the current assistant principal, to be the next principal of Hyman Fine Elementary School. That staff and the representation from parents that were involved in that process all felt like they had the person that they wanted already in the building, and that it made more sense to go ahead and appoint Noah, which we want to congratulate him. And that produces a vacancy at the assistant principal level. So the sooner that we get that posted and begin that process, the more of a head start we get on filling where the actual vacancy will be. So that's important news. Families will be notified by Ms. Martin tomorrow in a special communication that's happening. As we've already talked about, I'm working on Thatcher. I have a follow-up meeting with that staff tomorrow. So that's the next step in that process. And as you know, Mr. Rooney has taken the job at DR, so I'm beginning that process by meeting with the high school staff this Thursday. So really doing a lot of work in meeting with the staffs of the various buildings. We want to make sure that we engage in processes that produce not only good results, but that ones that the people who work in those schools accept and buy into and believe are in the best interest of the school. From our experience, we've seen how when the staff don't buy into the process that produces the next principal, that person starts at a deficit in that they're not seen as a legitimate choice. And so we've been really working hard at making sure that staff feel like they have a say in the process. And we believe that that's part of the success we've had in having people selected so early and embraced for these roles. And we hope that will pay dividends in giving people a head start in future success.
Mr. Storrs?
Thank you. Could you speak to what you foresee as the process for moving forward with the high school search?
Yeah, so the first step, I want to have the discussion with the staff and get their read on it before I overcommit to anything in particular. But I will preview for any of them that are watching now that obviously among the building principals, this is the biggest job in the district, and it at a critical moment in that school's future, right? With all the transition into the new building and all the plan changes that we have planned, this is a really delicate one. And ultimately, the success or failure of the person who we end up choosing for the job is going to be, my responsibility if it doesn't go well, right? As I've talked about with all of the various groups that I've worked with so far this year, there's no manual to being a superintendent. There aren't a lot of things that, it's very clear that no, that's what a superintendent does in all cases. And one of those things is hiring principals, right? So I'm not going to abdicate that authority. And in this particular case, because of how sensitive it is and how big of a job it is, I'm going to take a very active role in that process. I don't foresee that we're going to be looking at a deep pool of people so that a screening committee can come in and whittle down 20 choices down to the best 3, which is something that we often do, and under the best of circumstances we would do. Given that I don't think that that's what we're facing here, I should mention, I think I've already said this, there's a real shortage of administrators, both in the Commonwealth specifically, but nationwide. We have a hard time producing deep pools of applicants for any of the processes we do, and given how challenging of a job this is going to be, I think we have a real reason to be concerned about what that's going to look like as well. So rather than use that same approach, I think we're going to jump right to my involvement right out of the gate, so that we can act swiftly and lock up a good candidate if one emerges.
Quick follow-up. Okay, I mean, that sounds very reasonable. I would, in some ways, I'd actually see this as a very sought-after position. Brand new $260 million high school. This is a great opportunity for somebody. I'm hoping there's maybe some internal candidates. I'm sure that's going to be part of the process. But one of the other things I did want to mention, I know that you've, in the last year, 2 years, whatever it's been, have received feedback from various parental groups in the high school, related to the high school, with various issues and concerns.
Yep.
I would hope that they would be part of the process. Let's just
Absolutely.
say that. Thank you.
Mr. Frappier?
Thank you. I was just curious. I know a few weeks ago we talked about potential openings, and outside of the 3 principal openings that have been discussed, are we anticipating any more assistant or kind of under the principal level openings?
So let's see if I can keep track of all of them. We have a lot of moving parts. And by the way, I think this is a phenomenon that is not particular to Attleboro. We are seeing a ton of vacancies across the region and the state for various reasons. One being, I think, the pandemic has shaken a lot of things loose. There's a lot of movement. But some of these things, as we talked about before, were in the works to begin with, and it's just a matter of coincidence in the timing. But to try to answer your question, we know that we have a vacancy in what will be called an associate principal at Attleboro High School next year. So that's currently in what's called an AP, but in the new contract that we negotiated with the assistant principals, that the title of those 2 assistant principals is now becoming associate principals, and the deans are becoming assistant principals. So Colleen Neslin is currently the assistant principal, but she is taking a vacancy that was opened up as a result of one of the deans leaving this year. And so she's moving internally within her own bargaining unit, but that does create a vacancy at the high school. So that's one. A second vacancy is now at Hyman Fine. We created, when Mr. Atkinson took the job at Wamsutta, that created a vacancy at Coelho, which is currently being filled by Mr. Youngambi, but he's in a 1-year position. We hired him in a 1-year position because that was not a full vacancy yet. So Coelho's in the process of endorsing his permanent replacement, his permanent ascension into that role. And then we did have a vacancy at Thatcher, but we filled that with the person who was in the intern role. So Sarah Desatel has officially become the assistant principal. So,
Studley?
Anybody?
Who was Studley?
Studley did not have a vacancy. So Ms. Boyle did not take a leave of absence.
Oh, that's right. She was acting. I'm sorry.
She bet on herself, and we filled her position. So it was all or nothing for her. We're all glad it worked out. And then we have a part-time assistant at the ELC this year, and that was a toe in the water. And assuming that things that work out from a budgetary perspective, our intention is to fill that position full-time for next year. So that's another one. So yeah, we got a lot of moving parts, and the season isn't over yet. So let's hope that we don't have too much more movement because our creativity is being tested.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, Mr. Geddes?
Sorry, I was just going to quickly comment. I think this is both a blessing and a curse in that for the last 8 or so years, we have been very stable in administration across the district. And we've been able to fill vacancies with some great internal candidates. And in some ways, that's coming to roost for us all at once. And like Mr. Storrs mentioned, with internal candidates, if we're able to fill some of these vacancies with more good staff in-house, that's great. And if we find someone externally, which we have in the past, that can also benefit us as well.
Yeah, I mean, we're very proud of the work that we've done over the last few years in growing the bench, in recognizing that, there are going to be vacancies someday, and we need to be in a position where we have good people who are ready to step up and take the role. And I think it's a really important note that some of these people have been, career Attleboro people like Ms. Boyle, and others like Mr. Collins have only been here a couple of years. But in both cases, it's a mix of internal and external people who are going out and we're bringing in, and we're training them to live up to our expectations for what an administrator does in this district. And, it's a difficult job. It's really, really hard, which is why when we have, vacancies, we don't have a lot of people applying, because, again, this isn't an Attleboro thing. Across the Commonwealth, there's not a lot of people who it makes sense for them to make that leap. So, we're working really hard to make sure that we have a pipeline. We're training people, the next group of people, to step into some of these roles, and we're going to continue to make sure that we build our capacity to fill fill vacancies as they arise with good people who we know can step in and do it. Because when we go straight out externally for principals in particular, the interview process is never perfect, and it's much easier to be confident about placing people in who we know exactly what they are and what they're capable of. And you're seeing that the staff are feeling that way by the way that they're embracing these candidates who they know and are clamoring to lock in, and rather than to let get away. I'm here to tell you, 10 years ago, this was unimaginable, right? The administration was just bad, and so, there's no such thing as a good one. And now you're seeing people realizing, like, no, that's a good one. I want to make sure that, that's the person who's going to be in charge of what I do every day. And that change, I think, really reflects a lot of hard work in getting us here.
Mr. Storrs?
Just a quick comment. The thing is, you go back to the old days, and I remember 24 principals in 9 schools over a 2-year period. Craziness. And if you really look at this right now, this is for good reasons for the most part. I mean, we're not losing people. Sure, there's retirements. That's going to happen, and we're having people who were serving in a principal role moving into other administrative roles. That's a positive thing, and we have a lot of internal candidates moving into those positions. The difference now compared to then, people really should think about it. This is such a positive when you really think about it, and the fact that we are home growing so many amazing administrative talent says a lot about the administration. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and again, quite proud that the people who are working here want to move up into roles. They want to step in, they want to serve, they want to do it here. It's a testament to our work together. All right, so our final piece of business tonight, I want to turn over to Ms. Regan to talk to you about the school year calendar for 22-23.
Thank you. So in the packet you received is the academic calendar for next year, and the structure of the year has remained the same. The only addition is there's one half-day early release day in March. Everything else has remained the same.
Mr. Storrs?
The only question I noted was regarding the elections. We don't see any concerns with that?
We were just speaking about that today, so we started some planning for that, particularly for the elementary school for Willett. It is the same day as our orientation, but I feel like we'll be able to work through it and make sure that there's, ample time to plan and prepare for it.
mean, it is an off year, so it shouldn't be crazy, but.
Yeah, so the election commission let us know that as much as it is a primary, you know, they're expecting it to be a little bit more busy than average, which again, for primary is not many people to begin with, but so we're prepared for that. And, you know, I think our experience at Coelho is that they've kind of figured it out, and I think the voters are understanding that there are 2 times during the day that's not an optimal time to show up. And as long as you miss one of those 2 times, you're fine. We're still working on getting that message out at Willett. But yeah, we're literally working today on planning to make sure this works, because again, we believe that the schools, you know, belong to the community, and if this is what they're needed for, we need to find a way to make it work. And at this point, we don't see any reason why this is anything to be concerned about.
Thank you.
So you want a motion to approve the calendar for 2022 to 2023?
So moved. Just have one question.
All right, motion, and then can we have
Second.
Ms. Frappier, yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay.
It's a little silly, but on November 1st, the Tuesday, the green is a little bit lighter than the rest of the green. Is that anything special that we should be aware of?
No, good catch.
Okay.
I'll change it. Thank you.
Sorry. Because that's the other, that's the general, and I was just curious, but thank you.
Yep, I'll go in and fix that. Thank you.
Anything else? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes.
That concludes my report.
All right, thank you. Next, we have minutes from our January 24th, February 7th, and February 16th meetings. Minutes were circulated with your materials. Is there anyone that would like me to separate any of these meetings out? All right, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from January 24th, 2022, and the February 7th, 2022 regular meetings, and the February 16th, 2022 special meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion, edits, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Consent agenda, 5 items tonight. Motion to accept a donation in the amount of $14,500 from the Feinstein Foundation as broken down on the February 23rd memorandum from me. Motion to accept a donation in the amount of $50 from Target to the Attleboro High School gifts donation line. Motion to accept the contractual obligation in the amount of $103.90 from Planet Aid as broken down on the check receipt dated February 17th, 2022. Motion to accept a payment in the amount of $4 from Bay State Textiles to Hill Roberts. And motion to approve a student-funded field trip for grades 9 through 12 students to attend a trip to Waterville Valley on Sunday, March 6th, 2022 from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Next subcommittee meeting reports for tonight. We have one, and that's infrastructure and facilities. And for that, I will turn it over to Mr. Domenici.
Thank you, Chairman. And actually, it's not so much an update on the infrastructure meeting, because I gave that at the last meeting on the 7th, but we are bringing out a motion tonight, and then obviously we made some agreement to amend the agenda at the beginning, but I have the one motion.
Okay.
So I will make the motion to surplus the current high school and all contents. Yes.
Second.
All right.
And I think we need to have discussion on that.
Mr. Geddes.
Thank you. I'm actually going to move to amend this motion to say that the school committee surplus the current high school building and its contents located at 100 Rathbun Willard Drive, effective June 30th, 2022, with exceptions of certain parts to be surplused separately for specific purposes.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Oh, I had a question.
Yeah. Second. Okay, Mr. Frappier, go ahead.
Thanks. And I hate to be doom and gloom. Is there any reason to believe this would be premature? I know we're waiting certificate of occupancy. Everything's on budget, on time. Again, can we reverse it if need be, would be the question, if it's passed tonight.
I mean, the city can give it back to us, I suppose, but.
I know it's silly. I just want to understand the
I think we
process.
need to get it to the city so that they can accept and run it through their process is the reason why we're doing it this far in advance, because it has to go to the mayor, it goes down to the city council votes on it, and to have it done in time, you know, the wheels of government move slowly, so that's why.
I appreciate the clarity.
Yeah, no problem.
I do have one
Mr. Storrs?
Yeah, so when will the actual door opening ceremony be for the new high school?
I believe there will be a ribbon cutting just prior to the opening.
We're talking August?
Yep.
Okay. So, June to August.
But the administration's moving in prior to that,
Okay.
correct?
Mid-June.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
16.
so there's a lot of fluidity here. So in terms of like the, to Mr. Withers' point, the administration starts moving in mid-June. I believe some athletics might even move in sooner for the spring season, but not to the entire building, just those parts of the building. There will be a ribbon cutting event in August, but a full open house of the new building for the community to tour is not scheduled until
Late
sometime in
September.
September. So there's to my point earlier about like clarity on what's going to be available and accessible and when.
So the initial, let me just clarify a little bit, because the initial motion that came out, which I believe had been through discussions with the city as well, had that we need to surplus the building for the high school, and the point was made, well, if we surplus the building tonight without a date, are we what happens if they accept it in April? And so that's why we're putting an end date. So, okay, we know worst case scenario, we have a couple blizzards, we're here through June 30th. We can't be here longer than that. And so that's why we put the end date on it. And there are some items we're going to have to turn over before that, which is what I anticipate another motion to be about a little bit.
So the only reason the question is, I know there's other programs that run throughout the summer. So effectively, if we go with your amended motion, June 30th, and the actual building opening in August, we have a month there where there could be problems. So would there be a negative to moving your date to August to cover that time frame?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, so we're going to be in the new building, people who have to use it in the summer in June.
The summer programs will be in there?
So programs aren't going to be run in this building in the summer.
So the summer program, the extended programs and what have you will be in the new building?
We'll be in Brennan.
Oh, they'll be over in Brennan, okay. So there will be nothing going on in this building?
Demolition.
Remediation of remediation of hazardous materials in July, and then the beginning of demolition in August.
Okay.
The other reason for the June 30th date is that effective July 1st, Consigli takes over this building.
Yeah.
You mean demo?
Essentially.
Right.
Okay.
That's actually, that's a good point, Mr. Guys. That is the most important reason why it was the June 30th date was chosen. It actually fits with the last day we can have classes in the building, but Consigli takes over the next day, so we have to have turned it over by then. Thank you. Mr. Geddes?
And to go back to Mr. Frappier's question about why we're doing it now, the next motion will explain that a little bit further with, because parts of this building, while we turn it over to Consigli on July 1st, parts of this building will start coming down April 1st. And so we need to start identifying use for some of those pieces before that.
I'm just going to state that once we've agreed, we still have to approve the amendment.
Yes, I was just saying.
And then I'm going to ask Rob to read the motion as amended, since I couldn't write it down fast enough.
So any other questions on the amendment, on the new motion? So, Mr. Domenici, I apologize, I'm going to steal your spotlight here for a minute.
Steal away.
I love the logistics of Robert's rules, so I'll do this. We're going to do so this is a motion to amend the original motion. It's not, again, on the merits, just to amend the motion to say that the motion will be that we surplus the building as of June 30th, with the exception, and he'll read it in a minute, but the exception of certain items that will be surplus before. So a yes vote, we'll do a roll call because it's a motion to amend. A yes vote is simply to amend the original motion. Mr. Domenici?
Yes.
Ms. Bordeaux? Yes. Mr. Storrs?
Yes.
Mr. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Withers? Yes. Mr. Geddes?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Frappier?
Yes.
Ms. Sawyer?
Yes.
Rob, can you, Mr. Geddes, can you reread the motion as amended?
So the motion as amended is that the Attleboro School Committee surplus the current high school building and its contents located at 100 Rathbun Willard Drive, effective June 30th, 2022, with exceptions of certain parts to be surplused separately for specific purposes.
Second.
Any discussion on the specifics and logistics of this motion? We already kind of did it in discussing the amendment, but Mr. Storrs?
Could you speak to parts? That's a
So-
vague term.
It is a vague term.
Yes.
So some parts of the building are going to be sold and or auctioned as a fundraising effort for the district. The first batch of which will come in the next motion that I make, related to the part of the building that's coming down. And I'll cover more of those details in the discussion with that motion.
Just a structural question. Sorry. Would it make more sense to have the motion first what we're accepting and then accept the remainder? Does that matter the way we do the vote?
I don't think it matters. We're doing it this way because the original motion out of the subcommittee was to surplus the whole school. And so we're amending it to say that we're going to accept certain items, because there's going to be certain items that we have to accept over the next couple of months as Mr. Geddes and the group that's working on, and BPAC, the group that's working on the auction to sell certain items from this building, as they find items and as they identify items that they want to sell or that people may want, we may need to surplus those items earlier. They may not have identified all those items yet. So it may be, a month from now they realize, we should surplus that because we can give it to, the lacrosse program, or as an example, and so we have a motion to surplus an item to turn over to them. So that's why we kind of leaving it generic at this point.
Thank you.
Yep. Mr. Storrs.
So is it safe to say that this surplus of a building is going to probably get approved a little quicker than the last one we did?
I would certainly think so. Yes. Sorry.
This one included the address.
All right. So any other questions? All right.
So we're voting on the motion.
Yeah, we're voting on. Do you want me to take the vote, Mr. Dimitri, or you want to do it?
You know what, Chairman? You've been stealing all along, so feel free.
All right. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I'll turn the floor back over to you.
Well, I'm actually going to turn it over to Mr. Geddes, who is going to bring out the other motions.
So the amendment to the agenda that we approved earlier was for me to make a motion that the Attleboro School Committee ask the mayor and municipal council to approve the surplus of the following items to be turned over to the Blue Pride Ambassadors Club for fundraising efforts: pool tiles, the exterior Attleboro sign located near the pool entrance, 274 lockers from the boys' locker room, 1,320 locker cubbies from the girls' locker room.
So moved.
Second.
Go ahead.
So as we've discussed many times, and we've discussed a little bit tonight, the Blue Pride Ambassadors Club is helping with 2 closing events to say farewell to the current building. In June, we will have a much larger list of items that members of the community will be able to purchase or obtain through auction. However, the items that we're discussing tonight are in parts of the building that will be set to come down in April. And we would like to have them available for sale and auction during the walkthrough that is happening on March 19th. After getting feedback from a number of stakeholders, I'll be providing some more details to the Infrastructure and Facilities Subcommittee meeting at our March 9th meeting, so that we can decide where the funds raised will go at our full committee meeting on March 14th.
Mr. Storrs?
Just quickly, so tiles and floorboards and things of that nature, I get it, great. But the sign, that's more of a, we're not going to reutilize those types of signs?
All of the signs on the new building
Yep.
will be new to the building
Okay.
and everywhere around it.
Okay.
So it's expected that the letters on the Attleboro sign would be put up for auction.
Okay.
Things like, from this current list, things like lockers, tile will be put up for sale. Where in meeting with the group tonight, we're surplusing 274 lockers. It does not sound like we will be able to make 274 full lockers available based on the condition of those lockers. So some of it may be just the locker doors or just the locker numbers. Some of those finer details will be worked out, but either way, those items need to be surplused in a timely fashion in order for them to become available. we're turning it over to the Blue Pride Ambassadors Club so that they can facilitate the sale and auction of the items.
And just to clarify what Mr. Geddes had said before, the reason these specific items do is that this is the first part of the building that's coming down. So, when is that part coming down, Mr. Furtado?
Starts April 1st.
Yeah. So in the very near future. So that's why the focus tonight is on those items that will be in the part of the building that's being demolished in a month, essentially.
And as a preview for June, and to kind of answer some of the other questions that have come up, some of the items that will be available at the Lights Out Extravaganza on June 18th will include auditorium chairs, parts of the gym floor, parts of bleachers, parts of the stage, lockers with the up above cubbies that exist in the B3 cafeteria and over near the CTE wing. Interior bricks from the building. I know I'm forgetting a bunch of stuff, but we're going to probably at one of our meetings in April provide a. I mentioned it would be in June, but in meeting with the group tonight, we'll probably need to start the process on those in April so that the Blue Pride Ambassadors Club can start that process as early as the beginning of May.
So knowing that a portion of the current building is coming down in April, was that covered under the previous motions that we made regarding the construction of the new building, or do we need to surplus that portion of this building now so that way it can be approved and or whatever for April? You see where I'm going with that?
Yeah, no, that's a fair question. I haven't gotten any comments or requests from the city or the construction team that we surplus that portion of the building. Has the administration?
No, but it wouldn't hurt to do it.
Yeah. We meet again when?
March 14th.
Can we get can I ask the administration to get from the construction team a description of that portion of the building that's going to be coming down that we can put in a motion to surplus at our next meeting?
We will do that.
Yeah, along those lines, could we also get some input as to the process for the destruction of that portion of the building, the timeline it's going to happen? Is safety related for students? We're going to have students in the building right next to an area that's being raised. It'd be interesting to at least understand.
So I'm hearing a suggestion, which I think is a good one, that at the next meeting, part of the administration's presentation be as to what the process is going to be for that partial destruction in April. That starts in April. Timeline, what it's going to look like, how it's going to impact students, if at all, things like that.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
I can say, in leading up to that part, we know the pool is already been sealed off because some work has been happening there. As part of that, one of the things that over last week, in an attempt to see how feasible it would be to get large chunks of pool tile up, Consigli was already working on that, and we planned that for when school was out of session. So I think I can say that they're very sensitive to any educational disruptions. I think they'll try to take care of as much as possible during the April vacation, but I think Consigli could absolutely give us a more in-depth update on that plan.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll be getting questions. I think it's we should be able to answer it. So I think it's a good idea to have a presentation as to what that timeline will look like.
But I think it's safe to say, like, those parts of the building will obviously be sealed off and not accessible to any students or staff.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm more worried
we're not
about
going to have a
Jason.
wrecking ball swinging through the hallway. Of course, it's going to be safe, but we should be able to explain exactly how that's
what I'm more interested in.
Yep, absolutely.
Mr. DeMenci?
Just an assumption that those usable parts for auction, everything else will be assumed and absorbed in the removal per the high school project.
Yep.
So that nobody's sitting there with extra stuff and nobody's responsible for removing it.
No, correct.
Thank you.
Just a quick question. Knowing that we're already working on the pool area and knowing past issues with the pool, somebody building a pool that's below the water level of the city, usually a bad idea. I'm assuming we don't have any water left in the pool, so how are we dealing with that?
There is water in the pool.
Yeah, I figured there would be.
It's being drained into the drains in the parking lot that it used to drain into anyway.
So it's just constantly running pumps right now?
No.
Okay.
You wouldn't
No,
wanna-
it's full.
you wouldn't
Oh,
wanna-
okay, it's just staying full right now, but at some point.
And in fact, it's never looked cleaner.
I can second that.
That's amazing. How would you know it's sealed off?
You can see it through the small gym.
All right.
He has his ways.
All right, so we have a motion that's been seconded. Mr. Geddes, would you mind just reading it again before we vote?
Yep. The motion is that the Attleboro School Committee ask the mayor and the municipal council to approve the surplus of the following items to be turned over to the Blue Pride Ambassadors Club for fundraising efforts: pool tiles, exterior Attleboro sign near pool entrance, 274 lockers from the boys' locker room, and 1,320 locker cubbies from the girls' locker room.
Any other questions or further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you, Mr. Geddes. Thank you, Mr. Domenici. Anything further on your report?
No, unless there's any other motions by Mr. Geddes, that concludes my report.
All right.
Wait
Thank
till
you.
April. It's going to be a long list.
Thank you. Open forum. Is there anyone who would like to address the committee at open forum tonight?
So, I have a question about what we already did. Do I have to go to open forum?
No, but in a second I'll do. I'll just ask if there's anything else, and we can address it then. I'll close open forum. Is there anything else anyone in the committee would like to address, Mr. Frappier?
Thank you. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
I just had a question. We approved a student-funded field trip with no cost. Is that generally something we have to do when there's no expenditure that we need to approve it anyways?
When it's over a certain, Ms. Regan, go ahead.
When it's over a certain amount of miles,
Okay.
we have this. It comes to the school committee for approval.
Thank you.
It's usually, you'll see the overnight trips often, but sometimes if it's a longer, day trip, like the one tonight, that's, I didn't know what the specific distance was, but.
Yeah, I'd have to.
But it's okay. You can let us know, shoot us an
Like
email.
75 miles.
I think it is.
75.
So-
I think it's 75. I didn't want to quote the wrong.
Okay. There's
75
also there's
and overnight.
timelines associated with when it's supposed to come to us also.
Oh,
For
yeah.
example, if a trip going to Florida for cheerleading competition, for example,
Yeah.
that's got to be months in advance.
Months, okay.
Or a month, or whatever. it
We
is.
did that one already, though.
Yes, you did. That was an example. That's all that
And
was.
you can just send me an email with the
Yes.
amount sometime this week, and I'll send it along. All right. Any other questions or comments? Mr. DaVinci?
It's just a quick one, since it's, we're at that point. Got my ticket today. The Emmett Larkin Memorial Fundraiser is actually happening in person again this year for the first time in a couple of years. Dennis Walsh, Leo Johnson team, run point on that. Emmett Larkin did so much for so many of our young boys and girls for many years, and so just an opportunity for anyone interested. It's March 19th at the Elks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's dirty here. Judy, did you glue this?